Welcome back to Bay Area Focus. The Friendship Line helps seniors who are struggling with depression and suicidal thoughts. Dr. Karyn Skultety and Melanie Grossman will tell us about the 24-hour hotline. The Friendship Line is actually the country's only 24-hour toll-free hotline when it comes to this.
Yeah, we're the only accredited line that's specifically for seniors in the entire country. And being accredited means that anytime someone calls, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, someone always answers the phone.
And there is a big need in the older adult community. I mean, most of us, we look at teenagers for not having, we don't want them to have suicidal thoughts, but you don't think of the older community.
Yeah, I think it's hard for people to talk and to think about this. I had someone who told me, we would rather pay attention to the problem with teenagers. Right. And yet we know that older adults are actually much more at risk even than teenagers are to commit suicide. It's hard for people to talk about, it's hard for people to think about, and we've got to start to give voice to it for there to be something different that happens.
What about the signs of depression in older adults? What should we be looking for?
They tend to be different than what we see in teenagers. What we tend to see is people stop reaching out to the people that they know, stop going to social events, stop talking to family. They may be more grumpy or angry appearing, as opposed to teenagers. The typical is more dramatically sad and expressing more clear suicidal thoughts. Older adults may just talk about not wanting to live. Being a burden on other people is something we really want to hear as a warning sign. So it does tend to look different.
The Friendship Line has really helped a lot of people. You receive more than 9,000 calls every month.
Yeah. Every single month. We've gone in the last 3 years from about 4,000 calls a month to between 9,000 and 10,000 calls every month. We not only take calls in, one of the unique things we do is we call out to people who are lonely and depressed and isolated. We're trying to prevent people from getting to crisis and being there if a crisis happens.
And Melanie, you're a volunteer. You answer the phone calls.
I do.
Yeah,
yes.
And tell me about that experience.
Well, it's a really intense experience to be there on the line and to pick up the phone and not know exactly what's going to happen next. And sometimes we talk to people who are very sad, but not necessarily suicidal and just need some support. And sometimes we speak to people who really don't want to live and are actively suicidal and at risk for an attempt.
What compels you to volunteer to do this?
Okay, I need to.
Yeah, what inspires you? What?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what
okay.
inspired you to become a volunteer?
Well, I especially like finding out more about older people. I really enjoy interacting with them, and I think it's a tremendous need.
And you're obviously making a difference in some of their lives as well. We actually have video of one of the callers.
All right.
This was during the real fresh period of grief after my father died, and I was so grateful that the Friendship Line was 24 hours because the darkest time for me was in the middle of the night. When you're in that moment of the darkness and the real things, it's sort of like get a grip on your insides and hold on tight. You don't feel like that's ever going to stop. So I called, and they were wonderful. And I don't even remember what we talked about. It doesn't matter. It's just more that it was like the phone was alive and the line was alive, and I just felt the warm current connecting me to a real person.
And she really needed that at that time, and she got it, thank goodness. So the staff, the volunteers, they're all fully trained.
Absolutely. We do more training than a lot of other suicide prevention lines because we're not just training about mental health and suicide, but we've got to train people in being able to talk about the challenges people face when they age. When Robin Williams committed suicide, the line was almost, we almost had to stop it because we could not literally keep the calls, like we couldn't take them fast enough. Wow. We had so many calls, and the reality is you can call a suicide prevention line. There's a lot of people doing great work out there, but the chance that that person is going to understand what it's like to be diagnosed with a chronic disease or what it's like to lose your functioning is very small because the person's not going to be trained in that. We train in that because we know that people need a place to talk about that.
Sure. What about funding?
Great question. question. So the line has had some state funding support for the last 3 to 4 years that's really allowed us to grow that number from 4,000 to 9 to 10 that we talked about. Been fantastic, but unfortunately the state funding has gone away for this upcoming year, and so we're facing a crisis. We do have some funding from some of our local counties that have stepped in. We also have a campaign on Indiegogo that we've done where people in the public are stepping forward and saying, hey, this problem matters, I'm going to be a part of the solution. And so we're raising money there, but we have a ways to go. And one of the things we need to do is to get the word out. So we're very appreciative we're here to do that today.
I'm glad you're on this show to get the word out, to help out. Okay, thank you so much for coming on the show. And for more information on the Friendship Line, just log on to ioaging.org. Again, that's ioaging.org. And that's it for this week. We'll be back with more Bay Area Focus next week. Have a great day.